Hey everyone, this is Sam with Esports Psych. Just a quick intro to this video. This is part 2 of my interview with EeveeA, one of the most prominent transgender streamers, in which we discuss more of her personal life and her experience with coming out as a transgender person. And if you missed part 1, be sure to click the link below for more of a discussion, more based on her experiences specific to streaming. For more content related to Overwatch and mental health, be sure to subscribe to my channel, and I hope you enjoy. So, Elizabeth, of course, your life includes more than just Overwatch, and it started, way past your fame as an Overwatch streamer. Could you tell me a little bit about how you grew up, what your life was like, your childhood?
Let's go back to first memories, which are also almost along the lines of when I first started feeling along the lines of being trans. So I come from a very deep Christian background. My father is a pastor, and grandparents are Christians as well. And so, but ever since I was 5, I've felt out of place. I felt like I'm doing the wrong things. I'm not doing what I want to, and anything remotely masculine felt wrong. And so around 6 and 7, I started to piece together that this isn't me, this isn't how I felt. I didn't want to be doing the things I was doing. The classic example for a trans person is, generally speaking, boys play with boys, girls play with girls, and I never felt like I was fitting in. I never felt like I wanted to play with the boys, and all these masculine toys, in my school they would teach a couple specific things to the boys and the girls, and that kind of thing. And I've always felt like I was on the wrong side. I felt like I was not where I was supposed to be. And so that was something I always had to contain. And so I was private schooled from K4, K5, 1st and 2nd grade. And then my parents decided that it was best for me and my brothers to be homeschooled from 3rd to 12th grade. But because of various reasons, not all my parents, I ended up basically self-teaching myself that whole time. The curriculum wasn't that good, and that my dad never had much time, and my mom also was very busy with her obligations as well. But in that time, I self-taught, so I pretty much only had myself, occasionally my friends when I went to church, but even then, they didn't know. And the first person I ever told in my entire life was one of my friends, and that was about when I turned 18, and she didn't take it the best. And I feel like that's probably also because of how I came out to her, but it also really held me back moving forward in who I told.
How are you able to hold it in, and why did you hold it in until 18?
There was a lot of reasons, and I was afraid of being seen as a freak, and I would say 8, 9, and 10 were some of the most depressing moments of my life. I felt like there was no fix for this. Even me as some ignorant 7-year-old child praying to God every night before going to sleep, asking for this to be fixed. That's a lot of repressed feelings constantly, and so that caused me 8, 9, and 10 to want to kill myself multiple times. Or there was, I knew that if on the extreme end I cut off my penis, that would be either I could bleed out and I'd die, that would be good, or it would be a sign of it would be serious, but I'd also be seen as a freak to my parents, or I could make it worse, who knows. So, but I constantly felt as if none of this would really help me directly. It wasn't until I was, 15, 16 that I actually knew that it was even possible to have SRS done, or sex reassignment surgery. And so, I just knew that holding back from objectively irrational behavior was the only option for me, and that I just needed to float through life as long as I could. And having my first experience of coming out to somebody not being favorable, that was really discouraging. Especially because she was seen as my, like, I saw her as my best friend. And so when that borderline, I allowed that to ruin our relationship, it really, really hurt.
You said that you allowed it to ruin your relationship with her. How long did that affect you for? How long did it take to progress further?
I would say probably, like, it seems like a small amount of time, but it felt like an eternity. It was about 8-9 months before I came out to a friend online. And that was a scary time for me. And what made it even worse is that person online ended up being someone who was also, like, not in a... I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. What ended up happening is that person that I came out to online was also a trans person, and she, after hearing everything I had to say, she was very convinced I was autogenophilic. As far as I'm aware and remember, is the term of love of oneself as a woman, and it is a term used for men who only want to present as a female out of sexual pleasure. And so when she labeled me as that was devastating. And I'm like, what people would say, well, it's just one person, right? But then she was like, oh yeah, I talked to my therapists about this and they agreed. And it's just like, it made me clam up even more out of fear. I knew deep down it wasn't the case, but it was the fear of knowing that after they heard what I had to say and they came to that conclusion, what's to stop other people I come out to with that conclusion?
Right. That invalidating response that's taking what you said and twisting it to mean that what you're experiencing is fetishizing and not about your identity or who you truly are.
Exactly. So I would say that set me back another 6 months before I had a group of people I felt truly comfortable with, and that I came out to them, and that was one of the best decisions of my life. And so it was such a relief, and I felt finally welcome. And so then from there, it was less of a story about being trans and more of a story about how I came to streaming.
So before we get to streaming, how did you choose who you came out to? Because it seems like you took 2 swings and they didn't work out the way that you wanted them to. And the third time that you were able to build up the courage, you had spectacular results. What led you to come out each time, and how did you deal with the fallback?
It's so simple, but it's in a way not. Because at this point, again, it's so stupid. At this point, I had like 400 hours of Mercy. I was the Mercy of the group. I literally only ever played Mercy. I had never played another hero before. And so what that quickly grew into is the group calling me the mom of the group. Just that simple thing, because I played Mercy and I really cared and constantly tried to improve to better myself to keep my teammates that I played with alive longer, and in a way, because of my personality as well, they were very happy to call me the mom of the group and such. And so that in and of itself, maybe even in a subtle joking way, but it made me happy, and it made me feel more free to come out to them.
That's really powerful, and I think it kind of connects to the community and the way that it, at sometimes could be damaging and hostile, and patronizingly calling you, by she, her, like pronouns, and then at the other end of the spectrum, being the first community where you found people that really embraced your identity and accepted you. How did the story progress from there? Because now you're out to a select few people, over voice comms and things like that, but the general public doesn't know. At this point, you're starting to accrue streamers, and your parents don't know, which also I'm sure plays an important role in, your whole path here.
So what happened from here is pretty much my desire as a person to constantly improve at what I'm passionate about. A lot of these years of me being on the internet and not really doing anything specific, I have a deep passion for technology, and I constantly used my time to learn more and do more research, and because it was interesting, it was constantly fascinating to me. And if I didn't know something, I wanted to improve on it. This type of passion is what led me to wanting to improve at Mercy. Seeing someone like Purposeful and Adam from Cloud9 and FaZe, seeing them play Mercy made me realize, oh wait, I'm still trash at Mercy. And so I looked at them and I realized there's just so much more. I'm being an idiot. And so I wanted to learn as much as I could in any angle possible to improve at Mercy, because I realized that there's so many aspects, there's so much wasted time. Something as simple as, waiting and going around the corner and then guardian angeling up. That's like 8 seconds of wasted time, right? So that's 8 seconds I don't have my beam on somebody. And so that simple mindset of like, I'm wasting time led into my desire to constantly learn and improve Mercy. And from season 2 was the season where Mercy was very not viable in competitive play. And so I constantly received harassment initially in season 1, for not using voice. And so my desire to improve convinced myself to use voice comms, because I knew that I was doing a ton of mistakes. And at this point I had placed like 2600 in season 2. And so after I just used voice comms, I very, very quickly started to climb up into the 3200 range. And I realized, all right, so what am I doing wrong though? Now that I've gotten voice comms semi-established here, and so I worked on dying less. That cuts back significantly on your usability as a teammate and your usefulness as Mercy. Because the more seconds you have a beam on somebody, the more effective you're being, effectively speaking. So that constant desire to improve, and around 3600, after I'd focused on not dying as much, communicating more, and skillfulness with Guardian Angel, and paying attention to my passive regen, is around the time that I felt, hey, I want to share this. I want to show others that you can be good at Mercy. I want to show others that you can climb as Mercy, solo queue, Mercy only. That was the key thing, is because everybody was saying the only people, a ton of people used to say this, the only people in Masters and GMS Mercy are people who are boosted by another player. And I looked around, and unfortunately, even other high-end Mercies at that time, which were pro players, they only duo queued, because they would never want to play Mercy by themselves in public play. Like, why would you? You'd play Zen or you'd play DPS, right? So I took that upon myself to be that person. I want to be the person that teaches others how to play Mercy properly. But that fed back into my mission of being good at her in the first place. So then by the last literal minute of season 2, I hit top 500 as Mercy, solo queue only, and it was such a great moment for me, and that made me determined to keep moving forward. January 1st, 2017. After this point of only having like an average of 60 viewers, and I say only, but relatively that's a lot for that time, like a lot. I had 6 months of on and off streaming where from the start of season 1 of like streaming like every couple weeks, and then season 2 is when I started to like stream, like 4 or 5 days a week. But going full-time streaming January 1st, 2017 was one of the best decisions I've ever done. It made me determined to keep moving forward. And another shout out to one person, and he knows who he is, but he doesn't seem to like the attention, so I won't name drop him, but
a quiet shout out.
He he knew I was taking things more seriously, so starting January 1st, every day that I streamed, he donated $1 at the start of the stream. That little gesture, and it accumulated pretty quickly, but that gesture right there felt so nice, and I appreciated it so much, and that's what helped me keep going through a couple of the tough times.
Having one person out there at least that consistently supports you.
Mm-hmm. And so we're reaching the middle point here. This was around the time that I started to talk to Ryan and talk to Skyline, and I did videos with both of them, and that really helped me grab a lot of initial attention, and it was my responsibility to keep that attention if I wanted to keep growing. And so moving forward, I put a lot of focus on improving and teaching others, and so that's pretty much what I kept doing this whole time.
So did that kind of lead up then to the moment that we started off discussing, in going and getting your wisdom teeth taken out and setting off this chain of events?
Yeah, there was a couple things. There's been a lot of people who have been supporting me a lot, and so after I was partnered and after I was starting to make enough a month, my then friend but now girlfriend, she's helped me so much, and the thing that she did then that was so critical is that she had a friend who was wanting to move into this place, and they needed a third person to sign on the lease, and this was the perfect opportunity. So I moved years ahead of time that I was initially planning on, and yeah, I was able to then have the courage to come out, even though it went even then ahead of time because of wisdom teeth removal and being drugged. But yeah, it's so many things lined up, and there's so many people I'm grateful for that has helped me to get to this point.
One of the challenges that you had to overcome was specifically coming out to your mom before moving out, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that experience like? How did you handle that?
Oh, man, I told her on my birthday when we were out to eat, and it was such a conflicting experience for her. And my mother has had a lot of medical complications in her life, and one of them being she has lupus, and so that fed into her thyroid gland going out of whack, and so it was very easy for her to gain weight, unfortunately, and very difficult to get it off. And so around, when I was 12, she had a gastric bypass surgery, and that was something she fought with for a very, very long time, is if this was, messing with her body against God's will, etc. And maybe wrongfully so, but I use that as an example of just because it's how we are doesn't mean it's the right way, and I didn't say this at the time, but I would say the summarized way I look at being trans for me personally is I just simply look at it as it was a birth defect. That's honestly just a simple way I look at it. And so I've since told her that, but it's still very difficult for her to fully accept the concept of being trans. And so for people listening to this, I would say unless you know for a fact that your parents will be fully supportive of you, you really shouldn't be telling people unless you have a solid financial backing. If your parents don't agree with it, you don't have to be there. Or if you're younger, maybe don't tell them also, because they might make medical decisions for you. You don't know that.
You're definitely touching on something that a lot of people in the LGBT community struggle with, particularly, adolescents, is figuring out, that that feeling of being trapped, because on one hand, sometimes you so desperately want to be able to express who you are, and feeling so trapped for so much of your life because you're living at home. And on the other hand, being financially tied to your parents and so much of your livelihood depending on them, that, you know, it's a very common struggle to have, to make that decision on, am I going to come out to my parents, or when am I going to come out to my parents? What do I need to have in my life in order to feel comfortable coming out to my parents if I choose that? Very, very common.
And just to add a tiny bit of detail, I haven't come out to my dad yet. Since
how does he not know, seeing as you're so, prolific on the internet?
From what I know, doesn't pay attention to anything I do online. And so the reason why I decided to not tell him is that he as a teacher in our church, it would be very detrimental for him doing what he loves to do of teaching. He would potentially just lose his position completely. And moving forward, if anybody knows that, their child is trans, nobody would want him. It would be because it's in the Christian community, having your child be LGBT is basically seen as the parent screwing up. It's the parent's fault, which is completely not true, as we both know, but it's still unfortunately how it's seen. So this is more of, in a way, I don't feel the need to tell him, as well as combined with this would ruin him, both potentially emotionally and in his passion.
So you've told your mom, not your dad. Has your mom's reaction changed over time? I know that it was relatively recently that you told her, but from her initial reaction until now?
I would say that it's probably the only change is just simply her knowing that I'm serious about it.
Mm-hmm. Like it's not a phase kind of thing.
Because even if she knows objectively that when I first came out to her, just like, yeah, this has been going on pretty much my whole life. As a parent, just finding out this information, you can't help but feel like, but I only just know about it, Have you seen a documentary called Gender Revolution?
No.
It's a very non-patronizing is the term I'll use, aspect of not really knowing that much about LGBT, and her genuinely seeking out information regarding it and interviewing multiple people. I think it's really good, and it's what I'll start recommending moving forward.